When Kelsey Mitchell's body completely gave out on the court during Game 5 of the playoffs, her legs going numb as she collapsed into a teammate, no one could have predicted what doctors would uncover just days later. What began as what she thought were minor cramps turned into a full-blown medical emergency so severe that she refused to leave on a stretcher, her feet literally hanging lifeless with zero blood flow, as trainers carried her off the floor. But here's the shocking part: Mitchell says she'd do it all over again. And what she revealed about the real cause might completely change how we think about playoff basketball. The Indiana Fever guard opened up in an emotional press conference just 2 days after the terrifying incident. What she shared wasn't just about rhabdomyolysis. It was about what happens when an athlete pushes the human body past its absolute breaking point. And before we get into the full medical nightmare that unfolded, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, because we're about to uncover details about this situation that nobody else is talking about. Trust me, you don't want to miss what went on behind the scenes. Let's set the stage. Game 5. Playoffs. Kelsey Mitchell had just hit a three-pointer, that championship energy running through her veins, when suddenly, her stomach felt like it dropped straight into her legs. At first, she thought it was just that time of the month, normal cramps that every female athlete has learned to push through. But this wasn't normal. Within seconds, her entire body seized up. No movement. No control. Her legs went completely numb. As she fell into Isaac, one of the assistant coaches, she couldn't even form the words to apologize. Her body had literally stopped responding to her brain's commands. Now here's where things get absolutely wild. When the medical staff rushed over with a stretcher, Mitchell straight up refused. She looked at them and said there was no way in hell she was leaving that court on a stretcher. Think about that for a second. Her legs are completely paralyzed. There's zero blood flow to her feet. And still, she's worried about how she looks leaving the game. That's not just competitive spirit, that's something far deeper. The trainers had to physically carry her off the floor because she couldn't move her legs at all. Her feet were dangling lifelessly, and she still refused the stretcher because she wanted everyone, especially the opposing team, to see her leave on her own terms. But that wasn't the whole story. What Mitchell later revealed about the lead-up to this moment exposed a brutal truth about playoff basketball, one the league probably doesn't want you thinking about too much. She admitted this was her first ever postseason appearance. After years in the league, this was finally her moment, and she wasn't going to let anything, not fatigue, not pain, not her body's warning signs, stop her from being there for her team. She talked about the workload, the endless practices, the packed game schedule, and the travel grind that had them playing Game 4 and then flying out the next day for Game 5. The human body simply isn't built for that kind of stress, but professional athletes are expected to just push through it. And here's something that'll make you think twice about what these players endure. Mitchell said she lost a massive amount of fluid that night. Rhabdomyolysis happens when muscle tissue breaks down so severely that it releases proteins into the bloodstream, damaging the kidneys and potentially causing complete muscle failure. It's something you hear about happening to marathon runners or military trainees in extreme conditions, not basketball players in a playoff game. But Mitchell explained she'd never played this deep into a season before. She'd never experienced the relentless grind of postseason basketball. Her body simply wasn't prepared for the accumulated stress. What happened next stunned everyone watching. After being carried off the court, unable to feel her feet, Mitchell was taken first to local doctors in Las Vegas, and then to the Fever's medical team. Their verdict? This was a once-in-a-lifetime event, so rare, so unexpected, that nobody saw it coming. But here's the part that's both inspiring and terrifying. Mitchell said she wouldn't change a single thing. Not one practice. Not one workout. Not 1 minute of preparation. She said she played until her wheels fell off, exactly as she promised, and that she'd trade her body every single time for that experience. While all this was happening, Mitchell wasn't just thinking about her health. She was crushed that she couldn't be out there helping her teammates finish the game. The emotional weight of that hit her harder than anything else. But when she finally rejoined the team for photos and post-game moments, she broke down. She talked about how she'd done life with these women for 5 or 6 months, how they'd become her family and how they made her feel loved at her most vulnerable moment. And the details she shared about what happened on that court will give you chills. While she was lying there, paralyzed and terrified, Aaliyah Boston was praying over her. Lexi Hull held her hand. Brianna Turner kept repeating, "Your legs are going to move. They're going to move." over and over, like a mantra, as Mitchell's body refused to respond. That's the kind of bond you can't measure in stats. That's what Mitchell called the radiation of love. Something that makes a team so much more than just players wearing the same jersey. But the story, because let's be real, nobody, and I mean nobody, expected the Indiana Fever to even be in that play shuffle rotations, bringing players in and out, trying to build chemistry and culture, while simply fighting to stay in the top 8. And then came the elephant in the room. The impact of losing Caitlin Clark. Now, before anyone jumps into the comments, let's clear up the confusion about the Caitlin Clark situation. During the Fever's playoff push, her presence was absolutely essential. Her absence earlier in the season due to injury completely shifted the team's identity. Everyone had to reinvent their roles overnight. Mitchell herself acknowledged just how big that impact was, how the entire roster had to learn to compete without their star rookie when she went down. But here's what makes this even more relevant in 2025. Clark has been dealing with injury issues again, missing crucial games that the Fever desperately needed her for. That pattern, key players going down, the team constantly having to adapt and overcome, has become the defining story of this Fever squad, and that's exactly why Kelsey Mitchell pushed herself past the breaking point. When you're part of a team that's been doubted from day one, that's had to fight and claw for every single win, that's seen teammate after teammate sidelined, the last thing you want is to be the next one on that list. You don't want to be the reason the season ends. So Mitchell kept going. She kept pushing. She ignored the warning signs, until her body literally forced her to stop. The medical side of this story is crucial to understand. When Mitchell described her legs going numb, when she said she couldn't feel her feet, that wasn't simple fatigue or a muscle cramp. Rhabdomyolysis, or Rhabdo, causes extreme muscle breakdown, releasing a protein called myoglobin into the bloodstream. That protein can clog the kidneys and cause permanent damage if not treated immediately. The fact that Mitchell began regaining feeling in her toes while still sitting in the huddle, that blood flow returned before she was hospitalized, that was incredibly lucky. Some athletes who suffer from rhabdo end up with kidney failure or long-term muscle loss. But Mitchell's reaction to it all revealed something deeper about what it takes to compete at the highest level. She said that as a professional athlete, you do what you have to do. You commit to the work. You don't complain, and while she admitted that this was a huge learning experience, a wake-up call about understanding her body's limits and maintaining playoff-level endurance, she also made it crystal clear. She wouldn't trade that experience for anything. She literally played until her wheels fell off. And in her mind, that's what championship-level commitment looks like. Now, here's something that should make every fan think twice about what we demand from athletes. Mitchell was asked if she noticed early symptoms of rhabdo, but mistook them for normal fatigue. She admitted that, looking back, yeah, there probably were signs. The exhaustion had already set in, thanks to the grueling travel schedule. Playing Game 4, then immediately flying out the next day for Game 5, she'd done all the right things. Hydration, treatment, recovery. But sometimes, the human body just reaches its limit, no matter how prepared you think you are. During those terrifying moments when she couldn't move, trainer Todd Champlin was right there beside her, keeping her calm. He kept reassuring her that her legs would start moving again, that she just needed to get the blood flowing back. That steady voice, that calm in the middle of chaos, helped her hold it together instead of spiraling into panic. And when her toes finally started to twitch, when she felt that first flicker of movement returning, that's when she knew she was going to be okay. But then Mitchell addressed the other elephant in the room. One that might make some people uncomfortable. She laughed about. Not blaming Coach Stephanie White for all the intense practices, but beneath that joke was a serious question. Are players being pushed too hard? The WNBA schedule is brutal. The season is shorter, the travel is relentless, and recovery time is minimal. Add playoff intensity on top of that, and you're asking athletes to perform at superhuman levels. With very human limits. Mitchell's case might be extreme, but it's not unique. In recent years, more and more WNBA players have been breaking down physically. Serious injuries, chronic fatigue, burnout, and behind every one of those stories is the same truth. The line between greatness and collapse is thinner than anyone wants to admit. The league is more competitive than ever, which means players are pushing harder than ever. And their bodies are paying the price. So the question becomes, at what point does competitive drive cross the line into dangerous territory? Kelsey Mitchell says she wouldn't change a thing. But what if the outcome had been worse? What if she'd suffered permanent kidney damage or long-term muscle loss? These are the conversations that need to happen. especially as the WNBA continues to grow and the spotlight burns brighter. These women are world-class athletes. They deserve our respect, our admiration, but they're also human beings with limits. And when someone like Kelsey Mitchell, a seasoned veteran who's been in the league for years, experiences something as severe as rhabdomyolysis in the middle of a playoff game, that should serve as a wake-up call about what we're asking of these players. Looking ahead to the rest of 2025 and beyond, Mitchell's experience raises serious questions about player health and safety. Doctors told her this was a once-in-a-lifetime situation, something incredibly rare and unexpected. But is it really that rare? Or are we just not hearing about the near misses, the players who push through pain, ignore symptoms, and risk their health because they don't want to let their team down? Mitchell was lucky. Her case of Rhabdo resolved relatively quickly. But not everyone might be that fortunate. The resilience that Mitchell and the Fever showed throughout this season is genuinely remarkable. They could have folded when injuries hit. They could have made excuses when the critics doubted them. But they didn't. They kept fighting. They kept competing. They kept believing, even when the odds were impossible, and that culture, that refusal to quit, is exactly what made Kelsey Mitchell willing to sacrifice her body for one more chance to compete. But it also exposes the fine line between admirable toughness and dangerous recklessness. Mitchell's story is inspiring, yes. Her loyalty to her teammates, her competitive fire, her refusal to back down. But it's also a cautionary tale. Because sometimes, the bravest thing an athlete can do isn't pushing through pain. It's listening to their body and stepping back before it's too late. Mitchell didn't have that luxury. The warning signs weren't clear enough until her body completely shut down. But going forward, both players and teams need to be more proactive, more educated, and more willing to prioritize health over heroics. And the emotional toll? That can't be understated. Imagine being one of Mitchell's teammates, watching her collapse on the court, her legs suddenly lifeless, trainers carrying her away because she physically couldn't walk. That's not something you forget. Then having to regroup to finish the game, to compete at the highest level while your teammate is being treated in the back. That takes unbelievable mental strength. The fact that the Fever didn't crumble, that they finished strong, that they made sure to go out fighting. That speaks volumes about the heart and character of that team. Mitchell's gratitude for her teammates runs deep. She specifically thanked Aaliyah Boston for praying over her, Lexi Hull for holding her hand, and Brianna Turner for reassuring her that her legs would move again. Those moments, that raw humanity in the middle of chaos, that's what sports are really about. It's not just about wins and losses. It's about the bonds that form through shared struggle, through pain, through unwavering loyalty. And before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was Kelsey Mitchell heroic for refusing the stretcher and pushing through? Or did she take it too far? Or should there be better protocols to protect players from themselves? And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because we're going to keep following this story and bringing you updates you won't find anywhere else. The broader implications for the WNBA are huge. As the league continues to grow in popularity and viewership, the pressure on players will only increase. Expectations will get higher. The competition will get fiercer. And if the league's infrastructure doesn't keep up, if teams don't invest in better medical care, smarter recovery programs, and improved travel logistics, we're going to see more situations like this. Kelsey Mitchell's story ended relatively well. But the next one might not. What makes her story so powerful is the accountability she took for it. She's not blaming anyone. She's not making excuses. She's owning the experience, learning from it, and still saying she'd make the same choices again. That mix of maturity, self-awareness, and unstoppable drive is exactly what makes her a special player and leader. The fact that this was Mitchell's first ever playoff run adds another layer of emotion. She'd worked her entire career for that moment, to compete on that stage, to prove she belonged there. And when she finally got her shot, her body gave out. That's heartbreaking, but it's also poetic. Because it proves just how much she gave, everything. Every ounce of energy. Every drop of fight. She left it all on the floor. As we move deeper into 2025, Mitchell's recovery and return will be something to watch closely. She mentioned needing time to reset, to restore her blood flow, to rebuild her strength, and to make sure her body can handle elite competition again. That's smart. That's necessary. But knowing her? Knowing how fiercely competitive she is? You have to wonder if she'll actually give herself that time, or if she'll push the limits again, because that's just who she is. Her biggest takeaway: understanding what her body needs to sustain playoff-level performance will be crucial for her longevity. She's no rookie anymore. She's a veteran. She's been through the grind, the pressure, the heartbreak. If she wants to keep competing at the highest level, she has to be smarter about how she listens to her body. The once-in-a-lifetime nature of what happened to her is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting, because it means it's unlikely to happen again. Terrifying, because it means it could happen to someone else. Another player pushing to the edge, giving everything they have, and maybe not recovering as quickly or as completely. In her final press conference remarks, Mitchell spoke about pride. Pride in what her team accomplished despite all odds. Pride in how they handled adversity, injuries, and lineup changes. Pride in the culture they built just to make the playoffs. That pride is earned. That pride is deserved. And that pride is what will fuel her comeback, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The WNBA needs more stories like Kelsey Mitchell's, not the medical crisis, but the heart behind it. The loyalty, the resilience, the refusal to quit, the love for teammates. The competitive fire is so bright it borders on dangerous. Those are the stories that inspire the next generation. Those are the moments that remind us why we love sports in the first place. But we also need to make sure those stories don't end in tragedy. That the system protects these incredible athletes so they can have long, healthy careers doing what they love. So yeah, Kelsey Mitchell played until her wheels fell off. She literally collapsed on the court, her body shutting down under the extreme stress of playoff basketball, and she says she'd do it all again. That's either the most inspiring thing you've ever heard, or the most concerning. And honestly, it's probably both. Because that's the beautiful, complicated, and sometimes dangerous reality of elite athletic competition. And Kelsey Mitchell just gave us a raw, unfiltered look at what it really takes to compete at that level.